and others in the world is created by conversation. Deepak talks about the human custom of sharing stories and relating our experiences to others and forming opinions and experiencing the agreement or disagreement of others. And this process creates a strong sense of identity in us. But before we know it, who we actually think we are, who we take ourselves to be, becomes dictated by our thoughts taken from our conversations with others. So when we begin a silence practice, such as we're doing here this week, oftentimes it happens that in the beginning, our thoughts become more active. I'm sure many of you had that experience already. When we stop the habit of speaking, the internal voice can become really loud. The Zen master Bunki says, in observing silence, we don't need to hate the arising thoughts or stop thoughts that do arise. Simply realize that our original mind, right from the start, is beyond thought. So that no matter what, you never get involved with thoughts. Illuminate original mind, and no other understanding is necessary. So Mouna and this experience that we're having this week gives us the opportunity to witness our thoughts and observe the activity of the mind without getting too involved in it. And we see how our thoughts activate our emotions, and our emotions dictate and drive our behavior. So as we observe this practice of Mouna, this practice of non-speaking, eventually the ego starts to settle and relax, and something else begins to arise, which is a deeper and more direct experience of being. And hopefully we're all having that experience from time to time in surprising ways this week, as we just let go more and more, let go. And we even let go of the attempt to grasp onto this experience, this deeper experience of silence, because as Deepak has said in such beautiful ways, all of our experiences are coming and going. And this can be a great relief to begin to realize that nothing about ourselves is fixed. Nothing about ourselves is consistent, other than that the one who's witnessing and the one who's having the experience. And that can't be grasped onto. It can't be held by anything. It's very liberating to begin to start to have that realization little bit by little bit. And that's really, I think, a big part of the purpose of retreat, to give ourselves the opportunity to just let go deeper and deeper into that experience of being. So there are 4 steps in the practice of Mouna. The first step is obviously to stop talking. Just zip it. Secondly, the second step is introspection and inquiry into what arises when we begin to observe silence, what comes, and begin to inquire into where do the thoughts come from, where do the emotions come from, and not to engage too much into the intellect, but just to witness, just to observe. The third step is to develop Mouna of the mind. So as we stop speaking more and more, and as we gradually start to relax a lot of our efforting, the mind starts to become more and more still, more and more relaxed. And then the fourth step is to let Mouna happen. So the silence that we are speaking about here is already always so. And the more that we relax into it, the more we feel drawn into it. And as we do, we have the experience of what's called pratyahara, the withdrawal of the senses. Pratyahara is one of the 8 limbs of yoga, the withdrawal of the senses. And as we begin to withdraw our attention from the senses and relax deeper into the silence, our attention is drawn deeper and deeper into that. Eckhart Tolle says, when your attention moves in the direction of the silence of the now, there is an alertness. It is as if you were waking up from a dream, the dream of thought, the dream of past and future. Such clarity, such simplicity, no room for problem making, just this moment as it is. Adyashanti says, all that is necessary to awaken to yourself as the radiant emptiness of spirit is to stop seeking something more or better or different, and to turn your attention inward to the awake silence that you are. So in the same way that fasting is a way of purifying the body, we hear Deepak talk about his ritual fast that he does. And, we can all begin to create these kinds of rituals, these Mouna rituals for ourselves. I used to do, oftentimes on a Saturday, which is Saturn's day, by the way, just like Sunday is the sun's day and Monday is the moon's day. Saturday is Saturn's day, and Saturn is considered to be the greatest teacher because it teaches us about the beginnings, middles, and endings of everything, including all of this. So on Saturday, which was the original Sabbath, it can be a good day to just abstain from food for the period of sunrise to sunset, maybe just take water, and also observe silence for that day. It's often a day that we're not working, that we don't have a lot of things to engage us. So it can be a dedicated practice that we make, and it's worth an experiment. Oftentimes we reset the digestion when we fast, as Deepak mentioned. But also we can reset the internal digestion by this observation of silence, just for one day. And I think as we do that, we begin to become a lot more aware of our speech and of what is really necessary. In fact, those 3 inquiries are very useful in every moment to ask the question of ourselves when we're beginning to speak. Is it kind? Is it true? And is it necessary? Is it necessary? A lot of times we realize that it really may not be necessary at all. So Mouna has many benefits that we can see. Swami Shivananda, who began the tradition that I was trained in, that Amanda and Renee were trained in as yoga teachers, Swami Shivananda, great yogi, he says, energy is wasted in idle talking and gossiping. Worldly people do not realize this. Well, we're not worldly people here, are we? Not this week, anyway. Mouna conserves the energy, and you can turn out more mental and physical work. By practicing Mouna, the energy of speech is slowly transmuted or sublimated into Ojas Shakti. Ojas Shakti is spiritual energy. Mouna eventually curbs the impulse of speech and gives peace of mind. You'll get the power of endurance. You will not tell lies. You will have control over speech. Mouna is a great help in the observance of truth and control of anger. Emotions are controlled and irritability vanishes. Even when one is ailing, observance of Mouna will give great peace of mind. Vedanta says there is a depth of silence in each of us that has never spoken. a quiet that simply allows anything to arise and pass through the mental landscape. We don't need to try to silence our minds. And I think that's always important to remember. There's no trying, because it's always present. We can simply relax into the silence that contains everything, including the mind. Then we become more accustomed to noticing the quiet rather than fixating on the noise of mostly useless thoughts. So the silence becomes more the rule, and the disturbed state of thought becomes more the exception. So silence also, and hopefully we find that here this week as we are on retreat with our companions here, that it begins to dissolve boundaries between ourselves and others, because we begin to recognize that same silent presence in everyone. Mother Teresa says, we need to find God, and we cannot find God in noise and restlessness. God is the friend of silence. See how nature, trees, flowers grow in silence. See the sun, moon, planets, and stars, how they move in the silence. We need silence to touch souls. Once the disciple Bashkali approached the guru, Bhava, and asked him where that eternal, supreme, infinite, the Brahman, the Upanishads was. The master spoke not. The disciple asked him again and again, but the master did not open his mouth. He kept perfect silence. At last the teacher said, I have been telling you again and again, but you do not understand me. What am I to do? That Brahman, that infinite, the eternal, cannot be explained. But by deep silence, we know it. There is no other place for him to dwell in. The one eternal deep silence. Ayam Atma Shanta. The Atman is silence. God, or Brahman, is supreme silence. Soul is silence. Peace is silence. Silence is the language of the heart. Silence is the language of the sage. Silence is immense strength. Silence is great eloquence. Silence is the substratum for this body, mind, prana, and senses. Silence is the background for this sense universe. Silence is power. Silence is the only reality. The peace that passeth all understanding is silence. Behind all noises and sounds is silence, your most innermost soul. Silence is your real name. Silence helps the intuitional self to express itself. To go into silence is to become one with God. So Deepak has given some beautiful quotes at different times about silence. He says, to make the right choices in life, you have to get in touch with your soul. To do this, you need to experience solitude, which most people are afraid of. Because in the silence, you hear the truth and know the solution. Inner silence promotes clarity of the mind. It makes us value the inner world. It trains us to go inside to the source of peace and inspiration when we are faced with problems and challenges. So we always have that resource in any moment. Silence is the great teacher, and to learn its lessons, you must pay attention to it. There is no substitute for the creative inspiration, knowledge, and stability that comes from knowing how to contact your inner core of silence. We have to learn to go beyond both positive mind and negative mind to become a silent, non-judgmental, non-analytical, non-interpretive mind. In other words, the silent witness. In the process of silent witnessing, we experience inner silence. In the purity of silence, we feel connected to our source and to everything else. The higher self is whispering to you, always softly, in the silence between your thoughts. Without silence, there cannot be any real appreciation in life, which is as delicate as its inner fabric as a closed rosebud. Self-love begins to grow when you trust that the universe is on your side. Form your desires from the heart and watch the higher self carry them out. Believe that you are enough, and of yourself, heed the tenderness and sweetness of your love for others. Put your attention on positive energies in every situation and honor your own needs without having to seek outside approval, and cultivate the peace of inner silence. So there are a number of other ones. But let's now just take a minute and close our eyes. And just begin to bring the attention inside.
Relax your body. Observe your breath as it goes in and out. Now move your awareness into the area of your heart. Allow your ego to move out of the way, and you will get in touch with your spirit. Be grateful. You, my friend, are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of the thoughts. The thoughts come from you. So where are you? You are in the stillness, the silence between your thoughts. That stillness, that silence is you. And that you is the window to the infinite mind. The mystery we call God is whispering to you in the silent space between your thoughts. It is for this reason that the great wisdom traditions say, be still and know that I am God.
So we have this day now before us to be still. Nothing to be, nothing to do, nothing to get, nothing to become, nothing to seek, but just rest. Just be still. Experience that. This is a precious gift. So we'll be on our own now until 7 o'clock tonight when we come back for our satsang with Deepak. So, blessings on this day.
We do have also the 4 p.m. optional meditation for anyone that would like to participate.